So this is what I'm talking about in our theory here, where, roughly 7 million years ago, we stopped being bonobos. And I believe that due to our rampant fucking on the jungle floor, right, we stopped being arboreal. And we can't even live in trees anymore. Like we stopped being chimpanzees. We became a different creature because we wanted to fuck a lot on the jungle floor. But we spent like 6.9 million years turning into Homo sapien, right? We became Homo sapien 300,000 years ago. A million years ago, we started in the Homo line, right? Humans began about a million years ago. That's what they're talking about when they say a million years ago, we controlled fire. We were the hairless primate that could control fire, and we started creating villages around said fire, right? And that's where we started scaring the shit out of all the other animals, to where, like I said, you read the scientific reports that talk about animals being monitored at watering holes when they play recordings of human chitter chatter, human jibber jabber, just human talking. Every fucking animal leaves the watering hole. All of the big predators, elephants, lions, bears, right? They all fucking leave, right? Because they all understand that hairless primate is not to be fucked with, right? Wherever that hairless primate is going, it's because they're going to want to set up camp. They're going to want to have these weirdly disgusting, crazy, fucking frantic orgies. And then they're going to want to kill every fucking animal they can find within miles for their banquets and their feasts so they can replenish and have another orgy, right?
Yeah.
That's what every fucking animal learns about this hairless primate, the human beings. So that gets programmed into them over that next, basically, 750,000 years, right? To where then we're Homo sapien. We're this creature, the creature we are today, right? Same brain, same body frame, same immune systems, right? Genetically, we are the Homo sapien of today. We're that 300,000 years ago. Do you think this creature 300,000 years ago didn't have art? No, we had art. Bitches can't walk into any store, and I mean bitches on the male and female. You can't walk into any store without decoration, right? You walk into any mechanic shop and there's fucking hats and wall hangings of, Napa, Pennzoil, right? Look at this girl's titties in a calendar. All kinds of art.
Yeah.
Men's stores, women's stores, right? The love, life, live, laugh, the wall hangings and whatnot. These meters, this is what we have. This is acquired modern knowledge, right? Our modern anthropologists, archaeologists, historians, paleontologists, blah, 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 on and on. The massive breadth of academic diversity that we have that studies this creature's past, they have found evidence and fact about this stuff.
Right, where you can prove.
Yes, where you can prove a date and a time and an existence, right? Because farmers have found XYZ in their field, right? Or an excavation site for a building found XYZ that we then had to look up and carbon date and find and put into the anthropological, archaeological history of humanity, right? And what I'm saying is you have to remember the fact that just because we don't have proof of anything happening doesn't mean it didn't happen. Because remember, the earth overturns shit, right? You get a Pompeii all the fucking time, right? Because we don't always know which mountains are going to fucking bury cities that we build next to them.
Right.
Because we don't always know right? Mount St. Helens blew up and all of a sudden everybody went, oh, holy fuck. Did you guys know that was a volcano? Right? And that happened in modernity.
Right.
That happened since we had aeroplanes. And we didn't know that was, and maybe someone knew it was a volcano and they just like, well, it's dormant and didn't, right? But we didn't.
We know it was active.
Yeah, we didn't know it was an active volcano that people, right? That was a surprise, right? People talk about the murder. Oh, as far as XYZ, this place far away, there was ash that was coming down. There was an inch of ash covering it, right? It surprised people, right? Yeah. So like for the idea, I doubt people say this often, but when people might say something along the lines of like, oh, those Pompeii people, how could they just get buried instantly like that? How could they not know they were sitting at the base of a fucking mountain or a volcano that was going to fucking bury them soon? We didn't know in modernity. It happens to us frequently enough, right? Because Earth, she likes to overturn shit. She likes to stir shit up, right? Our planet, our earthquakes, right? Fires, right? Constant removing of atoms and material, right? To where I'm like, we've been this creature for 300,000. Don't think that we weren't doing great and marvelous things 250,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago, 150,000 years ago, 50,000, right? We've been doing great things.
We just didn't have the technology to make it withstand time.
Right, and preserve forever.
It doesn't mean we weren't creating art that disappeared back into nature when we were done enjoying it.
Yeah, and you guys can reference some of our videos of the people building stuff in the jungles, the little temporary houses and whatnot. And that's our overall point here is that we would have been doing marvelously fucking phenomenal things even 200,000 years ago. We are an amazing creature.
Yeah.
Right? We would have been doing that 250,000 years ago. it's just that we wouldn't have cared to build with such permanence because we were nomads. We were wandering the globe. We were teaching every animal in every ecosystem to be abso-fucking-lutely terrified of us. Because at that point, we had realized we own this planet, right? We spent 6 million years being afraid of everything that was trying to kill us while we wanted to fuck on the jungle floor, but things kept trying to kill us. So we were scared of everything, which is why I think we have a lot of these genetically, psychologically ingrained traits of like fear of things we don't know, distrust of things that are unfamiliar, blah, 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 because we had to be, right? We are essentially a hairless primate that does not have the muscle strength or mass that most of the other primates do. We don't have the teeth. We don't have the claws, right? So we spent a long time being afraid of everything and figuring out how to kill everything. And then the last 300,000 years, absolutely, we were just wandering this earth with unchecked.
Yeah. That's why we've turned on each other.
Right? Yeah.
Because we've already subdued all of the animals.
You want a challenge to continue to hone your fighting skills. Yeah. You got to go against other humans, probably. I think here was a good stopping point for me to bring up some of my thoughts on how our theory kind of plays with I think it's the Fermi paradox or something. Everybody in space and the physics world, not knowing if there's other alien life, right? Or not knowing why we haven't interacted with other alien life. And obviously with the universe so big, there has to be other alien life. And well, obviously with the complexity of intelligence, maybe there isn't. I obviously don't know what is true and accurate, but I don't see any reason why humans might not be the first. What we define as intelligence. Yeah, I mean, we are obviously coming to find other animals are intelligent and so on and so forth. But, this self-awareness and self-determination, right? Like we are now a species that, I'll just call it intelligence. We are now artificially altering our evolution.
Yeah.
In a way that not other creatures, that animals don't, right? We're not, like we've talked about kind of before, right? We're not really just an animal anymore. This creature is obviously something different because we are now not just following the basic rules of evolution, right? We've decided to take evolution a little bit into our own hands.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, that type of intelligence, that might be a new thing that the universe hasn't seen yet, because as we just saw in this illustration, it takes a long time for this type of matter to form, and it takes a long time for that type of matter to form, and it takes a long time for this type of energy to form, right? All these different things happen to create, there are countless things in the universe, right? Different materials, minerals, atoms, what are those little tardigrades, right? The little creatures, so many things in the universe, right? Us, just think about how much shit is on this planet. This one planet alone has all these different things, right? It has nickel, it has cadmium, it has lithium, it has, right? So I'm like, the level of complexity and density and breadth of the universe, right? It takes a long time to establish these things, to where I'm like, you can say, oh, well, GF, there's plenty of other planets that developed to the point that Earth is at right now, long before Earth developed into that. And I'm like, yeah, but remember, those planets got hit by fucking asteroids too, just like Earth did, right? So I'm like, so now you think about all of the chance and crazy encounter that takes place out in this massively, massively crazy universe. Right? You got fucking comets, you got asteroids, you got materials being flung everywhere, you got stars banging into each other, you got black holes that are eating galaxies by the day, some of them so big, right? And spitting their fucking materials out the top and bottom of them to be reformed into something hundreds of billions of light years away once that matter slows down enough to be able to be turned into something as it collides with other things, right? Huge, massive, complex system of basically pool balls just being thrown and banged into each other, right? Yeah, it's going to take a long time for a planet to be untouched long enough for a species to evolve to the point where it has intelligent, self-aware thought, right? Like how many planets it probably has happened where the first primate-like creatures, because it was primates on this planet, the first primate-like creatures started going, do I exist? Oh, fuck, is that a comet? Oh, shit, right? And now they don't fucking exist anymore, right? Just on the cusp. Just on the verge. I was almost about to be a thing that could say, do I exist? Right? But then my fucking planet got annihilated by, it just so happens, a larger planet that was being flung this direction by a larger black hole that was, right? This is a complex universe to get to hang around long enough to become a teenager in intellectual thought,
Because like you were saying earlier, the Earth,
I love it. Good
and
callback.
the universe, we want to change.
It wants matter
we
moving
don't
around.
Like to be constant.
Oh yeah,
we have to be moving and changing, and
nothing about this universe allows stagnation, right? There are the few laws and rules that we know that are unavoidable about this universe do not allow for stagnation, right? You got gravity, you got time, you got shit wants shit to be moving, and it will do it by force. Yeah. No 3, 2, 1. Anyway, so as we just watched that little segment, that kind of illustrated to me my point of, think about how many variations of life evolved that got squished and never evolved any further, right? Because life branched out. Like as soon as that molecule started to exist, that was what we call life, and then it started to divide and divide and divide and divide and divide and divide, right? And it went all different kinds of directions, right? And a lot of them died out for lots of different reasons, right? We've had countless trillions of species just go extinct. And we know to a degree that, billions, right? We've seen, we have the evidence of that. We can say that statement that there is a strong likelihood based on what we know, based on what we know, we can make a strong, safe projection that there have been trillions of species on this planet alone that went extinct way back or way early on in their development.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's why I say people need to stop fucking around when they say, well, we know what's best for our species, for the humans, blah, blah. Or I'm like, fuck all about fuck all. Right? This species alone has proven itself to be a survivor, right? We are 4.55 billion years down the timeline of this planet's existence. And granted, yes, the human species has not been here that whole time, right? But our original ancestor goes back to the exact same thing that all other species, all other life on this planet does.
Right.
And from that point forward, everything in our species' evolutionary past did not fail. It is a proven survivor. This form is a proven survivor. Even when we decided,
we wouldn't be here having this conversation.
Exactly. And I'm like, especially when we decided to separate from the rest of the whole host of primates, right? Whatever that was, jokingly and more seriously by the day, who knows what this, but our theory being, right, we wanted to leave the trees because it's easier to have a big fucking orgy on the flat ground, right? It's hard to do. It's hard to have an orgy in trees, right? You know what I mean? But anyway, so you move down there, and we spent the rest of that time evolving, and we still fucking survived, right? We proved to every ecosystem on this planet that we are not a species form to be fucked with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, people need to appreciate that. We are the gods of your mythos, right? All of you people who have religions that you adhere yourselves to, those origin stories, those gods, those mythos this species is where those stories come from. So I just wanted to add in real quick. The guy who put together this video, he obviously got very emotional at the end of it with the whole perspective and realization that, your human lifetime is no greater than the width of a hair on the timeline that feels the age of the universe. You know what I mean? So he made that statement about, we are here for the briefest of moments, and what you do with that life, it's amazing. It's so he was very passionate about it. So I really suggest people go and check out this channel. There's only a few videos on it, but we're gonna go through a little bit of them, and they're very interesting to see. So I highly suggest people going and looking at them. All right, Clara stopped this for a second, and we were just talking about the solar eclipse. So I'm going to see if I can trigger her to bring up her thoughts again. So
we were just watching a video on the solar eclipse in 2017, and I definitely remember that happening and it being a big deal. But watching that kind of made me a little bit sad that I didn't think of it as big of a deal or as monumental as it really was.
Yeah, for us to where we would have we should. She was saying we should have prioritized it more. She was wishing that we had prioritized it more and taken advantage of getting to see it. And I agreed with her totally, 100%. Yeah, especially with the way it was laid out in this video. And when you can hear a what do they call it? A montage. You hear a montage of these. Some of them were like 1950s newscasters, and then for the 38 years ago ones were on there. That's those guys, and then the modern podcasters and commentators and whatnot, talking about the way it makes you feel, the way interacting with the heavenly bodies, right? You get as humans on this planet. I mean, and that just makes me think, in our theory wise, it makes me think of like, yeah, no wonder we built Teotihuacan. No wonder we built those massive pyramids and the Stonehenges to give us those celestial measurements of those bodies moving in the solar or in the solar system and in space, basically. But because we, for a long time, we've been moved by these things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I would imagine that since probably from the beginning of Homo sapien is probably when they started going and taking real accurate measurements and starting to build these cities that could give them the measurements and the knowledge that they wanted, to where it's probably been since we've been Homo sapien that we've been kind of like, we're going to get off this planet one day. We're going to fly one day off of this planet, and we will go out there because we started paying attention a long fucking time ago, because you can't have something happen like a total eclipse like that. You know, to bring it back to point, you can't have something like that happen. Not this species, right? I think of it on the level of like, there are those magnetism molecules. I'm being completely ignorant and dumb about this because that's not what we care about on this show here. But so, like pigeons will have those, right? They have the magnetic, right? And I'm like, I think that's with us, right? Like we're drawn to these. You can't have something like a blood moon and have it go unnoticed by every creature on the planet, right? When something happens, like all of us, we all, right, collectively, the hairless primates of the planet Earth go and look up,
because we want to assign meaning to everything.
right?
And if something unusual happens, we want to get down to the bottom.
We're going to get to the bottom.
We need to find out why and how can we manipulate it, and how can we make it better for us if we want to,
either via entertainment or profit or use. Not always bad, right? But we are going to figure it out, because again,
we want to know how it works.
We want to know how it works, because probably first and foremost, right, is it going to hurt me? We want to make sure it's not going to hurt us, and then we want to see, right, is it going to enthuse us? Is it going to please us? Is it going to entertain us, right? And then further levels, can we profit from it? Is it functional for us? Can it become utilitarian for us, right? To where I don't care what the necessary drives are. The point being, a creature like us never going to be able to ignore things like total solar eclipse.
No.
We're gonna be in awe of something that awesome, right? It's why we created words like awe and awesome.
Exactly. Nope. Check out this quote from Galileo Galilei in 1610. "It is a beautiful and wondrous sight to behold the body of the moon."
And I was telling Clara, I could not agree more with that. I used to be a smoker, and so I would go outside at night a lot to smoke, and I would constantly find myself looking up at the moon in all its different phases. I didn't care. Full moons are great, of course, don't get me wrong. Who doesn't love a full moon, right? That's obviously the best, but I love the moon. It gets so bright in the sky, and it draws your attention, and you want to look at it. And the more you look at it, you can kind of see bits of it clearer as some of it blurs, and then some of it some of the parts that were blurred become sharp as you lose the specificity of the one spot you were looking at. It's kind of an amazing celestial body that even pre-telescope obviously has drawn humans' attention pretty heavily, right?
Yeah.
But I think post-telescope, it's even more amazing. We had this tiny little telescope and an even smaller monoscope, really just a hunting monoscope kind of thing, a bird watching type of thing, right? Nothing big, nothing elaborate, right? And we would take it places out to the front of our apartment building. We took it with us to Costa Rica, to some cabinas that we went to. We had it at some friend's house, so on and so forth. And every time we had it out or took it, people always wanted to look through it, and it was always amazing to see how sharp and big the moon looked through it, and just how crystal clear some of the craters and the sights that you can see in the moon are amazing. And this video does a really good job to illustrate just how this guy, he takes his telescope out, and his telescope that is significantly more powerful and would provide those people a significantly larger, crisper, more magnified view of the moon than ours ever would have, right? And they are all just in awe. Every single one of these people, wow, oh, that shit's amazing, oh, holy cow. The response is varied, but basically the same, very easily understandable as the same response, because the moon is beautiful, and it just draws our attention. It's amazing.
And seeing it through a telescope, and I think he says it somewhere in the video, but it makes it more real. It makes you connected to it more. You can see images of the moon in movies and TV, in print. Like there are beautiful images of the moon
that will be even bigger and closer than your telescope might.
But but it's just that feeling you get when you're looking through a telescope. It's like amazing. You are pulling it to you, and it's so real. Like it's there. you can definitely would feel a
Yeah,
connection.
you definitely feel that difference. She makes a very, very great point. Like, I would strongly suggest, if you know anybody who has a telescope, or if you know you can go a place that has it, you should do it just to look at the moon, because it's an amazing different. It's an amazingly different experience to look through a magnifying option and seeing it, rather than just, like I said, like she pointed out, you can see a picture in the magazine or something, or you can go online, of course, and see great satellite photos, all kinds of photos, but it's completely different. It's maybe something about the natural wobble, right? Like, maybe because there's just a slight, you have to move your eye and align it, and that makes it move. So it almost gives it maybe that 3-dimensional real life dynamic
Yeah.
to seeing it. So you're not only closer, but it seems real that you're
And
closer.
your eye is focusing, like,
Right. It's having to register it
it's
and
doing,
analyze. And yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
Something about that. Yeah.
that probably is what makes it feel more of a connection.
Yeah, I would, as you can see, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I would strongly suggest there is almost a degree of romanticism to be experienced when you look through a telescope yourself at the moon.
Yes,
There is definitely that you can romanticize that moment very easily, because there is something different about it than just seeing a sharp and well magnified photo of the
yeah,
moon, for
yeah.
sure. With this quote, as we got farther and farther away, the Earth diminished in size. Finally, it shrank to the size of a marble, the most beautiful marble you can imagine. Seeing this has to change a man. James Irwin, Apollo 15. And yeah, I was just mentioning, I can't imagine how it wouldn't, right? Like, I don't know what the exact number is, and anyone else, it's the internet, you can find it. It's something like 24 people, because it's only the people who've been to and towards the moon, right? Because we're not talking the people in the ISS and people who fly, from Earth to the
Okay.
ISS. They don't. Right? Earth is fucking huge to them. Earth is fucking huge, right? Like, they will float over. They can watch Italy for a short period, right? They can watch Europe, right?
Right, because how far away
Yeah,
from
because
the
they're in
Earth
low
are
Earth
they?
orbit. They're in
Which
low Earth
is
orbit, which is, I can't. Oh, boy, I'm gonna screw this up. I hate it. It's not very
okay,
far.
okay.
I want to say. Oh no, I'm going to butcher it. We'll look it up, and other people they'll know the answers, right? But our geosynchronous satellites are significantly further away. I want to say that, like, they're tens of thousands of miles. I don't want to.
But they're not manned.
Feet or whatnot.
Right?
Yeah. No, they're far away, but even they wouldn't be able to see the Earth as small as the people who went to the moon, because people forget the moon is actually quite a bit of ways away, right? The moon, our GPS satellites, things that stay in geosynchronous orbit, that's the highest orbit that we use, and even that is only like a quarter or a fifth of the way to the moon. It might not even be that far. It might even be a tenth of the way to the moon. I can't remember. It's not very far, right?
Yeah.
The highest thing's up, right, and the space station is in the lowest satellite ring or orbit ring that we use, right? Because we have the low Earth, we have the LEO, and then we have I can't remember what the mid range is called, but there is satellites and stuff that we use in the mid range, right?
Okay.
And then there's the geosynchronous orbit that we use. But so anyway, so I was just commenting on how, if you think about the fact that it's around 24 or less than 24 or something. Again, don't quote me on that number. Very few people have been out to the moon. Some people went to the moon, some people slingshot around the moon, right? But there are very few people who were in the very rare human position to be able to turn around, look back at the Earth, and have it be the size of a marble, have it be very small, something that you could cover with your thumb when you look through your spaceship window. You could cover the Earth. And then to think about the fact that all of the 8 billion current human beings, and all of the human beings who've ever existed prior, any human being you've ever heard of doing anything famous, and any human being who no one ever heard of, all of human existence is just hanging in space, in that empty black void outside my spaceship window that I can just cover with my thumb. All of this, right? Our petty war, our petty disagreements, our petty insults, right? Our love, our passion, our art, the beautiful things that we create. It's all on that tiny little dot.
Insignificant.
That has to change a human being's perspective on life. It has to, when you can see it like that.
Yeah.
It's much. We paused it and wanted to do this quick little tangent, because we were like, it must be like a magnified version of that, experiencing looking at the moon through through your own magnifying object, right? Your own magnifying tool. Your further interaction with getting to see that thing it gives you a different perspective than just looking at a photo, to where I just think about the million times fold experience that must be for an astronaut who is now at the moon looking back at Earth going, whoa, life looks entirely different now, because holy fuck, that's my planet, my wife, my kids, my house, my family, my grandparents, the factory that my father's father built. Everything is on that. Holy, that's got to change a person.
Definitely.
And from what I remember, anything, all the articles I've read, videos I've watched, interviews I've seen, every astronaut who's been out that far, they do tell you that it's life changing.
Yeah.
It completely alters their opinion on pretty much everything. Yeah, so we just watched the last video from this channel, the to scale of the solar system, and it's incredibly powerful. I love the way they built the model and they walk you through it. I love the way they verify the scale with the sun.
That was amazing. That was
Right?
amazing. Yeah.
You highly recommend going and seeing these videos. And as we looked, you can see in the background here, we went and we checked out, right? So this is a channel that just has these 6 videos. There's 2 behind the scenes making of videos, and then it's like these 4 award-winning little shorts. And I don't know, but they're very powerful videos, and I highly suggest you go see them because they're fantastic. And the ones about the solar system, so our commentary on that, let's just cover that, is we love when you see things that are scales of the solar system, because it's so easy for people to forget scale. We talk about that a lot, just about society as well. It's hard for people to forget, the scale of numbers. There's 330 million people live in this country. People say that so nonchalantly, not recognizing what that actually means to conceive 339 million people, right? All the people in my neighborhood, and I live in a big fucking neighborhood, right? I know a lot of people in my neighborhood. Yeah, that's maybe 1,000 people. That's nowhere near a million, let alone 300 million, right? So in all these different ways, we frequently recognize how it's hard for humans to just remember scale and to put it into our, when we are empathizing, when we are theorizing, when we are trying to relate to someone about something. It's hard for us to remember the sheer size of things so often, and these solar system models never fail to impress us on that. Because they're so big. You've got, the Earth is a marble, and that means it's got to be, what was it, 178 or 198 meters away from the sun, and then you get to poor Neptune, that's way, way, way the fuck out there in the ass end of the solar system.
Right. It said you needed 7 miles away, right?
So yeah, Neptune, right, was 7 miles from the sun.
If the Earth is a marble.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Because I think the video started out by saying, like, any image you've seen of the solar system is not to scale, because making it to scale, the planets would be,
you can't fit. They'd be microscopic, right?
You wouldn't be able to see them. So we have a very stylized idea of the scale
Yes, we do.
of the solar system. So putting these videos or these things together, or there's that bike trail that in Australia,
thank you for referencing that. Yeah,
where you can kind of bike the solar system, and it's just amazing because it's hard for our minds to really conceive, and even seeing it to scale is hard to really still comprehend. But you're closer.
Yeah, it's closer.
It's closer to comprehending.
It's easier for you to comprehend, to get close to comprehending properly, because I feel like because you had to put some physical effort into it, right? You got to register, oh my God, I had to run 7 miles to get to the other end of this model. Okay, so and I think that helps the brain translate when you start to conceive. Okay, when someone tells me the moon is 239,000 kilometers away, what does that really mean, right?
Yeah.
It kind of, when you do something like, oh, well, I had to run the 30 feet from one room to the, right? Because if Earth is the size of a basketball, right, the moon is like 30 feet away or something like that. I can't remember the exact. Dr. Tyson references that size quite a bit, to where, I think that part of us having to interact with the physicality of a scale model is kind of helps us get closer, but still.
Yeah. Even interacting in the video form, it gets you thinking about it in a way that you wouldn't necessarily in the stylized scales that we normally see, the solar system or the elementary school projects, where we're not creating those anywhere.
Right, you've made a solar system model.
What is important there is somewhat the size, but mostly the order.
Yeah, mostly the order, and do you have the names right? Are you remembering the basic details that we've taught for each one?
And does Saturn have rings?
Right, and does Saturn have rings? Yeah.
That's about it.
Right, exactly. And just because we briefly touched on it, but I do want to mention, please, go out there and take a look at this video. There's a guy, he does a great video breakdown of, it's somewhere in Australia. I want to say it's Sydney, but don't quote me on that. Don't quote us on that. But yeah, it's like a bike trail that does a scaled model of the solar system. So definitely check that video out too, because it's just as fantastic as these guys work. So yeah, I just wanted to end with the fact that there is so much happening right now with us going into space, and we are doing a lot of stuff on the moon. There's a lot of private companies going to the moon. There's a lot of countries going to the moon right now. We got India landing there a couple times. We got China. A lot of stuff happening, and so I'm just kind of fascinated with the fact that we are on the cusp of seriously leaving this planet. As the species, we are starting to build infrastructure. As I was mentioning earlier, we now have cellular. We have a cellular and a Wi-Fi network equipment set up on the moon now, and they are continuing to take more and more payloads of stuff there.
Yeah.
And they're getting ready. The U.S. government, the Chinese government, the Russian government, the Indian government, at the very least, the Japanese government. ESA, the European Space Agency, like several national and international groups are landing payload already, and several scheduled for this year, and several scheduled for the very near years to come. Like the lever pullers of our species are not fucking around. We are going to the moon, right?
Yeah.
We are most likely going to Mars, right? With as fascinated as Elon Musk and his companies are driving towards that, I don't think it will be very long before we have human beings doing to space what the early Asians who became Polynesians did on the coasts of their shores, right?
Right.
That's a big fucking ocean. Mom, Dad, Asia's been great, but
I'm going to see what else is out there.
I'm ready to explore, right? And they got in their little canoes and they hid out in that fucking ocean, and they, thank God, found islands, right? And now we have Polynesians and all different kinds of islands. You know what I mean? Like we are good at that, right? Our creature has proven over and over and over again at how good that we are at that shit, right? You need us to cross a chain of mountains? No problem, right? We'll figure a fucking way across. Whether we got to tunnel through them, whether we got to climb over them, whether we got a bridge, suspend between them, we'll figure it out. We'll get it fucking cross it, right? Mm-hmm. We are extremely good at that, and now we are going into space, and I am so excited. I am so excited with what our species is going to be able to do, and what we're going to start creating and coming up with, and being able to share and spread, because the opportunities are just going to be amazing. What we're going to need our species to come up with problem solving wise, right? What we're going to need for our species to come up with entertainment wise while we're doing these hard things, right? Like once we start getting back out into space and people start having to do things like, oh, I've got to stay in this small kind of cramped, sterile environment for a while, right? Because early colonization is rough, no matter what. Early Western expanders, early nomads, right? When, hey, I'm tired of this continent. Let's become Vikings. Let's go north. Let's go east. Let's go right. Like that's hard. That's hard shit. So we're gonna need so much more out of our creature to entertain us, to keep us thrilled, to keep us driven, to fix our problem, right? The engineering that's going to need to be done. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
To touch a little bit on the political, let me say this. People need to disassociate billionaires and the bad shit that they might do or don't do in their political endeavors and whatnot from their commercial endeavors of their properties. And a quick way for me to express what I'm talking about is, don't forget that there are thousands of people who work for companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, right? That these companies, a lot of people on social media like to jump to this whole, well, these billionaires just want to send their rockets up into space. Hee hee ha ha. Why are we letting billionaires fuck off? Don't do that shit, right? I get more mad at the billionaires for a lot of shit than anybody. Trust me, you'll see that in all our other videos. But don't forget to disassociate billionaires and their behavior from the companies and the hard work that all of the brilliant engineers and bureaucrats and note takers. I mean, this is everybody who works at those companies that are solving and fixing for our future. Like we can't demonize that level of frontier exploration because the owners are doing stupid shit. Because also remember, these companies will just change hands when bad things happen.
Exactly.
Like the work that they're doing is important, so
we're not going to let that die or let that be shot down because we don't like the CEO.
Yeah, exactly.
Space is still,
it's an important priority.
AI is still important.
100%. Yeah.
These developments that we're achieving right now are very important, and we can't stop that progress because they happen to be owned and
because some douchebag says some douchebag thing, right? Yeah. That's a separate thing, right? Don't get me wrong. You want to disassociate them, you want to boycott. I'm fine. I'm not trying to prescribe any kind of philosophical or political action or bent here. I'm just saying, just because billionaires do or say douchebag things doesn't mean you need to diminish the work that engineers and personnel and creative thinkers and manual laborers at these companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin and Tesla is doing a lot of good work in a lot of areas as well. Let's try to remember it. We don't want to make their lives harder and undercut the hard and wonderful work that they are doing on a species level for us, because their douchebag bosses are being douchebag bosses.
Right.
Right.
There are other ways to make the douchebag bosses pay or
Be aware of
be
your
aware
upset
of
and your
there are other ways to punish
yes
the billionaires
yes
than to
insult and be
attempt
mean
to
and
than to attempt to stifle innovation and
yeah and
advancement.
shut down a
Like,
company that is
no,
doing
we need to continue helping these companies,
yeah
not for the benefit of their owners,
right
but for the benefit of humankind.
yeah for us.
And if we need to somehow oust their owners,
Yeah, because we'll do
we
that
can do
at
that.
times. Yeah, there's
That's
lots of
separate.
different ways
That's a
that
separate
happens. Right. Yeah.
thing. But if these companies are doing and
To be
producing
talked about later in a
things,
different video.
if these companies are doing things that are truly advancing
Mhm.
society.
Yeah. And on a final note, I think I just want to leave people with the idea that unless you are in the know, and that's what we're here for, is to kind of keep you up to date and aware of some of this stuff, is that there are a ton of companies in this country alone, just in the U.S., but there are a ton of companies around the world. Like we are launching rockets, we are launching payload through various different means. We'll do different videos on that, but I'm just saying, that we are optimistically moving forward into space as a creature. So if you're not ready for that, you need to start preparing yourself, because we are on the cusp. We are on the cusp of becoming a genuine spacefaring creature. So be prepared for that. And let's say this. The world only gets better when we're nicer to each other. So let's try and do more of that.
Yes.
Okay.